Of course, many of these people that, for instance, those who have come from the war in Syria, but also other groups, will be permitted to stay in Sweden. But there are other groups, and each individual case is tried individually, that will not be able to stay in Sweden because our courts will say that, well, you don't meet the criteria for that.
Swedish Minister for Justice and Migration, Morgan Johansson, talking to reporters after it was announced Sweden plans deporting 1/3 of refugees seeking asylum there back to their countries of origin. This comes after Sweden's neighbor Denmark passed measures allowing the Danish government to confiscate valuables from refugees to pay for their stay, prompting international outrage. For more, let's bring in from Newsmax Washington the former Hungarian ambassador to the United States, András Simonyi. András has traveled to many refugee camps in Europe, and we appreciate your time tonight on Newsmax Prime. So now it's Sweden, a country that took in more than 160,000 asylum seekers last year, the highest number per capita in the EU, planning on deporting up to 80,000. What do you think is behind the sudden shift in policy?
Every country, including Sweden and Denmark, are now struggling with a way out of this very, very difficult situation. I have to reveal to you that I grew up in Denmark. I follow Denmark very, very much. I know a lot about the Danish situation. And in recent days, the Danish politicians have been called names. They have been called Nazis and this and that. I have to tell you, nothing is farther from the truth. But one thing I need to tell you is that, of course, both Denmark and Sweden need to understand that the world holds them to a higher standard than many other countries. And perhaps that is the reason why there is so much outrage when the Danish parliament adopted a law or reinforced the law to confiscate jewelry from refugees. And don't forget, this brings back very, very bad memories. But the bottom line is, don't call the Danes Nazis. They are not. Well,
yeah, you mentioned that, and there has been a cartoon comparing this notion of using valuables, comparing the Danish government to the Nazis. And there's been this outcry, but András, here's the situation. And again, I come back to this. Everyone wants to be compassionate, but every nation has a sovereign right to determine who should be within its borders. Aren't we getting away from that, whether it's for a worthwhile, compassionate thing, such as truly needy people and refugees, or with what we're seeing with illegal immigration around the world, and especially in the United States? Denmark and Sweden have the right in their sovereignty to determine who comes into their own nations, do they not?
Both Denmark and Sweden are trying to cope with the refugee situation, with the migrant situation, and basically they have a very good track record in integration, in acceptance, in tolerance, and they're just trying to make sure they're trying very, very hard, sometimes making big mistakes, but to figure out a way so that they do allow refugees into the country, but they also protect their own social welfare system, their political system, make sure security is taken care of. So it's a tough situation. The bottom line is, it's a huge exaggeration to call these countries or call Denmark a Nazi country.
I would agree with you on that. That is an exaggeration. And granted, refugees are not the same as those who seek to immigrate to a country. But, you know, we've seen videotape of people coming out of Syria, going to places like Germany, complaining about the food they get. I saw a video of a young man, military age, complaining about what he was fed. Now, certainly, accommodation and acceptance is a two-way street. So do you see some of the disconnect that is occurring across Europe?
I think, first of all, a refugee is a refugee, and they should behave like refugees. When they're taken into a country, they should accept the laws, the culture, the traditions of that country, and trust me, these people are treated properly. They're treated well, and they shouldn't complain. It's really a misunderstanding of what a generous nation should be doing. But let me also say this. Just yesterday, we remembered the first anniversary of the attack on Charlie Hebdo. But 10 years ago, the Danish newspaper Jyllands-Posten published the cartoon of the Mohammed, and what an outcry there was, what a mess it was. But please understand, when the Danes defended the freedom of speech, they defended it on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the United States, of Europe, of all the countries that believe in democracy and free speech. That is the way you have to look at these countries.
And András Simonyi, we thank you for exercising your right to free speech with us tonight on Newsmax Prime. We'll be right back after this.